Testing, testing.
It works.
It works.
Is that it?
So welcome. For those of you who do not know me, I am Laura's dad, Peter.
Yeah.
Woo!
Yeah.
As the father of the bride, it is my privilege to give the first speech. As I get to go first, you'll have nothing to compare it to, so look on me as the warm-up act for the star speakers, the groom James and the best man Joe. This is an important day to my wife Kathy and I, a special day when we officially welcome James into our family. Thank you so much for coming here to celebrate with us this special day, especially those who have travelled a long way, such as James's grandparents from California, my cousins from Denmark and Germany, my niece Ella from the Netherlands, and my sister Mandy from Ireland. Inevitably, the older generation passes, but just to say, we know how proud Laura's grandparents would have been to see this day. They would have loved to have seen you this happy and looking so beautiful. And our thanks to James and Laura for bringing this wedding's organisation together. You've done a great job. Thanks to my dear wife Kathy for helping raise such wonderful children. How happy we are for James's family, John, Rebecca and Emma, to be joining us today. Laura, your mum and I are aware of just how blessed we've been to have you in our lives. It has been an absolute joy to watch a very caring and resourceful little girl blossom into the beautiful, clever, compassionate and extremely loving young lady that I have the privilege of walking down the aisle with today. Laura has been like a ray of sunshine since the day she was born. So here are a few highlights. The day Laura was born, 7th of April 2000, she popped out and looked blue. The midwife took her to one side to resuscitate her. My heart sank for a moment, and then Laura started crying. And then they put her in my arms and all was well. Her nickname is Beanie, as baby Laura was like a beanie bag, just plonk her down somewhere, and she usually didn't fall over. Staying with Laura's preschool years, I would mention that we have a family heirloom, an enormous Victorian doll's house. It came to Laura from our cousins when she was 3. I repainted it, and the look on her face was priceless when she saw it on her birthday. It was at least twice her height. Looking at it like this. Laura always liked to dress up. One time Dan and I were building a tree house in our garden. Not wanting to be left out, a 3-year-old Laura appeared wearing a multicoloured wig, bright clothes and big Dame Edna glasses and announced, "Hello boys!" She always was good at making an entrance. In her early days at school, we played Don't Step on the Crack as we walked together to the school entrance. What Laura didn't know at the time was that when I carried on with the game by myself and went back to the car. Laura progressed very well through school, academically, and she had some good achievements outside of school as well. Dan, Laura and I did karate together for many years, and Laura and I graded and got our karate black belts together, so everyone watch out. Well, I'm not sure anymore. We also skied a mountain together in Lausanne, Switzerland, which was awesome. I was very proud of you that day. It was really something. Laura's very good at art. She showed a flair for drawing and painting right from an early age, and she takes after her grandma Audrey, who also loved to sketch and paint. One heart-wrenching moment for every parent is when you drop off your child to uni and leave them to fend for themselves. I distinctly remember saying goodbye in Laura's Halter residence and walking down the corridor full of thoughts about this major milestone in her life. Anyway, it wasn't long before COVID put paid to all of that, and we collected Laura and Dan and brought them home again to be with us for a little longer. Bonus. Laura learned to play a mean electric guitar. I play keyboards. So lockdown gave us the perfect opportunity to record some music together, including Wish You Were Here by Pink Floyd and Africa by Toto, which we got a recording of right now. Laura then had a little more time at uni, graduating from Nottingham Trent with a 2-1 in psychology. We're very proud of her. Laura is well travelled. She's been to Scotland, Wales, Ireland to visit Auntie Mandy, France, Switzerland, the Netherlands to visit cousin Ella, Denmark to visit the Danish cousins, Norway, Spain, Greece, Italy, Montenegro, Croatia, Turkey, Israel, India to see Ella, the USA, the Bahamas, and very soon Hawaii. You're telling me a story. Down the years we have watched her faith grow at particular junctures, such as at her baptism, after an Oak Hall Christian reunion, and particularly since you joined Cornerstone and met James. You have what the Bible calls the gift of administration and love planning and organising things. You're also very caring and loving, and now you are in Christian ministry at the Jericho Road charity looking after vulnerable women here in Nottingham. We're so proud of you. Now as Laura begins married life, James will be whom she will turn to first for love and protection. And I know that she knows her mum and dad will always be there for her too. Laura, there is so much more I'd like to say about you, but my time is coming towards an end. You look incredible today. You're a beautiful woman, a wonderful daughter, you've married a terrific man, and you'll make a perfect wife. It is now time that I am to officially welcome James into our family, but to be honest, it felt like you've been family since you first started dating Laura. We took to you straight away, your warmth, openness, faith, resourcefulness, and clear, unswerving love for Laura. I was honoured when James approached me to ask for Laura's hand in marriage, but I wasn't at all surprised. I'm now no longer worried about who will look after her when we no longer can. Today they're embarking on their greatest adventure together, and it gives me much pleasure to be here with them. I'm very happy to formally welcome James into our family today. He's become like one of our own, and he's an absolute credit to you, John and Rebecca. I'm not done yet. You often wonder as a parent just how your children will turn out. You wonder what sort of decisions they will make, especially those that you have no control over. What friends they will choose, who they'll pick as a partner to share their life with. Will that person love and care for them as well as you would? Will you approve? Well, for what it's worth, Laura, your mum and I think you've made an excellent choice in James. So here's my pieces of advice for you both. Look after each other. Always pray together about everything. Be loyal and faithful to each other. Serve God and others together. Build your life together on Jesus, the cornerstone and a sure foundation. He is faithful, the same yesterday, today and forever. As the song Great Your Faithfulness says, through the years you've always been there, and through the years you'll always be there. You can face life's challenges with him or without him. The choice is yours. Personally, I would rather face things with him at my side. He says to you, and he says to us all, I will never leave you nor forsake you. So, after all that food, we could do with some exercise. So can I ask you to please stand, if you are able, and raise a glass to the newlyweds. Here's to the past for all that you've learnt. Here's to the present for all that you share. Here's to the future for all that you've got to look forward to together. To James and Laura.
James and Laura.
Thank you, Peter, for such an amazing speech. And thank you, Dan, and thank you, Kathy, for all you've done to support Laura into becoming the incredible woman she is today. Thank you to so many of you here for loving, caring, and praying for Laura throughout her whole life, or however long you've known her. And two such people are wonderful friends, Joe and Amy. And it would be impossible for me to talk about how I met Laura without talking about them. I met Joe in first year on my 9th day in Nottingham. We were on our way to church together, and as soon as we started spending much time together in second year, we became practically inseparable. And I knew Amy from similarly early on in uni, and got on well with her too. So when Amy brought Laura along to Cornerstone on the 9th of December 2019, we instantly fell in love, right? Unfortunately not. For the first few months of knowing each other, I merely knew Laura as one of Amy's friends, and she merely knew me as one of the 2 tall guys in our year. That remained the case until lockdown started, when a few of us, including Joe and Amy and Laura and myself, started watching church services online together and spending time together online. And as soon as things started opening up in third year, we started doing things together in person as well. And so that's how, mostly in the context of that friendship group, got to know Laura better as a friend over the next year or so. And it was an absolute privilege to get to know Laura better. She's so selfless, so wise, so strong, so mature, so humble, so self-giving, so compassionate. And her faith is so beautiful. It was and still is such a privilege and pleasure to see you growing in depth and of knowledge and love and understanding of God. And it's such a privilege to be a part of that. At the start of fourth year, I asked Laura for a lift up to Nottingham, as we were both going at the same time, and it saved my dad driving as far. So I got to her house, said hi to her mum, and off we went to Nottingham. Nothing particularly significant, right? Well, I don't know how many of you have read the book of Ruth in the Bible. It's about a woman, no prize for guessing her name, but at the start of the book, she goes through the immense pain of losing her husband, and then comes to faith in the Lord. And the rest of the book explores and shows God providing for her spiritual and material and emotional needs, and pouring out his love on her abundantly. And that includes providing a new husband, Boaz. And the book uses the phrase, "it just so happened," to begin describing the way in which they met. And it's such a beautiful phrase, laced with sarcasm and acknowledgement that things of this life which seem like coincidences are never outside of God's control and plan. And so, with that said, it just so happened that less than a week before I asked Laura for a lift, she had realised she had feelings for me. So when I turned up to her parents' house, I was just saying hi to my friend's mum, assuming I'd never see her again, whereas Kathy was thinking, my daughter's got a crush on you. And a couple months later, one of our friends, Henry, was part of a musical production of Grease. So I asked our friendship group if anyone wanted to go and watch it to support him. And again, it just so happened that Laura and I were the only ones to end up going. And it was an amazing show that we enjoyed together. And afterwards, it just so happened to be a 20-minute wait for the next tram home. So we went to get some food, and during that time we chatted about our families and life and got to know each other even better than we already did. And later that week, Laura invited us all around for dinner, and again, it just so happened that I was the only one of us who was free. So we had dinner together, the two of us, at Laura's flat, and just hang out for the evening. Later, again, the same week, it was snowing, so Laura and I asked if Joe and I would like a lift to church. It just so happened that Joe was spending that evening with his parents. So I invited Laura over for dinner again, and we got to chatting, and Laura asked me, well, we talked about relationships, and Laura asked me if I had anyone on my radar. At this point, Joe had also recently asked me a similar thing, and I wasn't ready to tell him that I had feelings for Laura, partly because I wasn't ready to admit it to myself, but instead I told him about another girl from church who had been talking to.
Oh no.
And Laura asked me if I had anyone on my radar. I had three options, which were to lie and say no one, or to tell the truth and admit my feelings for her there and then, or to tell her about this other girl.
Uh-oh.
So I told her about this other girl. And then off we went to church. And the entire time I was just thinking, I have to say something. So when we left church, Laura drove me back to mine, and before I got out of the car, I just knew I had to say something, but couldn't quite bring myself to it. So I told her, we need to talk. I'm told that it's not the best way to start a conversation like that, but I had to say something, had to start somewhere. And then I opened up to her about a few things, various conversations that we had, and admitted my feelings for her and asked her out. And then I look over, and for some reason she's smiling and saying yes. I still can't really believe that, to be honest. But here we are married.
Oh, I could cry.
So I wanted to propose to Laura pretty much as soon as we started dating, but I managed to restrain myself to our 1 year anniversary, which was last November. And these last 2 years with you, Laura, have been so incredible. The way God has molded and shaped our personalities and lives together to complement each other and suit each other has been so incredible to explore, and I can't wait to continue doing so with you. I'd like to thank my amazing parents and my wonderful sister for being such a supportive, encouraging, loving family, and for always pointing me to the even greater love of Jesus throughout my life. I'd like to thank my granddad for his lost my place. What I'm saying. For his constant loving attitude and generosity. And I'd like to thank Grandma, who we lost to cancer 14 years ago today, to our loss and her gain. She had a beautiful, sure and certain hope of going to be with Jesus, and as she got closer to doing so, we all needed far more reassurance about that fact than she did. I'd like to thank Laura's grandparents, again, for the role they've played in shaping her into the wonderful woman she is today. And I never had the opportunity to meet any of them in this life, but I look forward to meeting some of them in the next life. I'd like to thank my other wonderful grandparents who have been mentioned from California here, who've been married for 57 years. Wow. And they're doing it now. They still look at each other with an excitement like they're on their first date. And you model marriage so beautifully to us, and it is an absolute honour to be able to walk in your footsteps. Thank you. I think there is a longing in every one of our hearts to be completely known and accepted and unconditionally loved, to be completely and eternally fulfilled. And God has designed us like that because we are made to be in a relationship with Him. And anything less than Him will never satisfy that longing. I love you so much, Laura, and I'm so glad I get to serve you as your husband now. But as much as I try, I'm never going to be the perfect husband. We've all hurt our loved ones. I've caused Laura pain. Of course I have. I'm a broken, selfish, sinful human being. And I think if you're honest with yourself, you know that you've caused pain to your most loved ones as well. We're all broken and need redemption, and only Jesus can offer it. One thing that Ruth and Boaz, my adorable grandparents, and the two of us have in common is that the most important person in our lives is not our earthly spouse. As amazing as our marriages might be, they're not and never will be completely fulfilling. I'm sorry to give you the hard news if you haven't worked it out yet, but as good as some of your past, present, or future relationships in this world are, romantic or not, none of them and nothing else in this world will ever completely satisfy you either. So for those of you here today who don't know the joy of knowing Jesus, I urge you, I beg you, I plead with you, explore finding out about him, get to know him. There are people at almost every table in this room who know the joy and freedom of a relationship with Christ. Talk to them and talk to us, and please explore the possibility of running towards Jesus with us, hand in hand, and finding the one and only source of complete fulfillment, the only perfect groom who can satisfy every deepest longing of your heart. Apparently I'm supposed to do some toast or something, so thank you to all the bridesmaids. I'll tell you to stand up in a second. Thank you. For all they've done in supporting Laura, and don't they all look so incredible today? And thank you to all the groomsmen for being such incredible friends. And thank you for all the effort you and I suspect some of your girlfriends have put into setting up this wonderful hall for us, and for helping everything to run so smoothly here today, especially Samantha. Thank you.
Oh, no worries, mate.
So please join me in standing and raising your glass to the bridesmaids and groomsmen.
Yeah, I think it's right.
Cheers.
I'm not normally one for giving speeches. However, the last time I gave a speech at my own wedding, I apparently made Laura here cry. I hope I don't make you cry tonight, but I can't speak for James. We'll see how he does later on. The biggest problem with recently married people is that they have to remind you that they are married constantly. For example, I have been married now for 5 months. And I realised whilst typing this speech up that I make reference to my own marriage at least 4 times, if not more. I feel this experience of mine suits me best to give tips and tricks for it. I was going to give my main marriage tip to James and to Matt, though if I'm honest, now that the wedding is finished, there really isn't much point. I'm joking, of course. Marriage is a wonderful thing. The romantic meals, the chance to see your favourite person every day, the sleepless nights. Not in that way. Any husband will tell you that women like to take up the whole bed during the night, leaving you with but a slither of territory in the ongoing war for good sleep. And I do have James and Laura to thank for the lack of sleep I get each night. If it wasn't for them, I may not have been properly introduced to my lovely wife, Amy, and I am truly grateful for that. As James mentioned, I first met him almost exactly 5 years ago today. And all I could really tell back then was that he was much taller than me, probably smarter than me, but he was sound, and I could talk to him about how Doctor Who got worse every series. I definitely didn't think I'd be standing here as his best man on his wedding, especially when neither of us were particularly charismatic, but we have the last laugh, because we're the first in our groups to get married. And it is a true honour to be your best man. Lo and behold, I ended up living with James for 2.5 years, and got to know him quite well. In fact, in many ways, I already was James's wife. By that, I mean I did all the cleaning. figured that I probably have the best experience of anyone in the art of living with James. And so instead of giving James my advice as a husband to him, I figured I would instead like to give Laura a survival guide on living with him. Now, I mentioned cleaning. Personally, I love cleaning when it's not crippling my back. The problem with the flat that James and I lived in is that it never seems to get clean no matter how much one tries. There's dust over there, mould over here, the neighbours lost pets. Many landlords are committed to keeping their properties looked after in between tenants, and there comes a point where they resemble a National Trust ruin, doused in Lidl's branded degreaser. What I'm trying to say is that I knew that flat inside and out, what was clean, what was dirty. So when I saw my guy walking around the kitchen barefoot, absorbing all the crumbs and dead silverfish into his skin, I had to tell him he needed to be at least 1 inch off the floor for his own safety. So survival tip number 1 for Laura: please keep the floors cleaner than I kept ours, for James's sake. And I get a lovely new pair of slippers. Cleaning and cooking are the main benchmarks to any successful marriage, and I can safely say that James's cooking is rather superb. Pretty much all the meals I know how to make come from James, and I try to share his 5-spice chicken recipe wherever I can. Now, I'm actually going to interject into my own speech here, because David seemingly stole what I was about to say. So when I spoke to him in the foyer, he took a good look at my speech. So I'm just going to read out what I've put. Now, Laura, I know you already know this, but if you catch James cooking rice, you have to run for the hills. If you research me correctly, I think James has food poisoned himself at least 5 times. I have vivid memories of him projectile vomiting on his bedroom wall. We didn't get the full deposit back. Now, I've warned you about his hot foods, so I must also warn you of his cold foods. During the Zoom era, my friends and I all witnessed to something literally indescribable. A kind of failed science experiment of mutation. James had brought his laptop into the kitchen to keep in contact as he made a sandwich, his favourite, a cheese pickle. He opens a brand new loaf of wholemeal bread, but proceeds to butter the thick end slices. In the words of my own best man, Robbie, it is completely acceptable to use the end slices of bread for a sandwich if they are all that remains, but completely unacceptable to use these slices when you've just opened a brand new loaf. He then proceeds to pickle sauce the bread, no complaints there. However, he then whips out his Cathedral City and slices an inch thick piece for this monster. I'm sure you can imagine how nasty it looked. Laura, if you have any hope of you or James surviving your marriage, let alone surviving full stop, please cook his rice and please make his sandwiches for him. Now, I thought long and hard on what my final survival tip should be, but in the end it did come to me very easily. Laura, your final survival tip from me is to be there for James at all times, because he's madly in love with you. I remember the day James told me he'd agreed to go on a date with him that night mentioned. I remember coming into my flat and he was pacing up and down with the biggest grin on his face. And somehow I knew that that man I saw there would end up married to you on a day like today. He was very nervous. He didn't eat properly for about 2 weeks. I was worried he'd end up like Christian Bale from The Machinist. I also know he's been very nervous today too, as anyone would be. But the smile I saw this afternoon was the same smile he had all those years ago. To the two of you, I speak for everyone that we are extremely grateful for the friendship that you've provided us over the years, and I know that your marriage will be a model for us all. So, a toast to James and Laura.
To James and Laura!
Actually, one tip I will give you, James, be prepared to say yes dear a lot.